Welcome, everybody. Chaos on day one of the Republican National Convention. An uproar on the floor over delegates just moments ago. Listen.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the resolution is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
Campaign Carl Cameron is here with us to explain exactly what's going on. Now, Carl, I understand 7 states could have forced a vote. They got 9. What happened?
Well, great political theater, tremendously entertaining and very, very disturbing for Republicans to have this happen on the first day. There was an attempt by the Never-Trumpers, the Stop Trumpers, the anti-Trump forces to get a roll call vote on the floor. And what they were trying to do was, having obtained a majority of the delegates in 7 states, the requirement to bring a motion to the floor from the minority of the Rules Committee, they wanted a roll call vote. And they thought that if everybody would raise their hand and be counted, that there was a possibility that they could actually get it to pass. They didn't. They got, as you saw there in that video, dramatic as it was, they got instead a voice vote. And that leaves it up to the chair to decide who yelled louder in that convention center of thousands and thousands of people. And the chair's determination was that the nays had it, that the Never-Trumpers get stopped in their tracks, notwithstanding their belief that by having a majority of the delegates in 7 states, in one case, Mike Lee, the senator from Utah, said that they had 11 states worth of majorities. Others said it was closer to 9. But they did top it, and because they got a voice vote, they were literally shouted down. And in addition to what we saw there on screen a little while ago, Ken Cuccinelli, the former attorney general from Virginia and a very, very strong Cruz supporter, ripped off his credentials, threw him on the ground, and stormed out. It gives you an idea that there's not entire unity here because of the dissent against Trump, but they were shouted down, voice voted down, and there aren't a lot of other options left.
We're going to bring it around, Carl, but is that it? Was that the final straw to the Never-Trump camel?
There really isn't any other alternative. The minority report has been now struck down twice. There's really no other way to get back there, and as a consequence, it's now Trump's to win. And the idea that anybody, and the other thing is, even with all of this maneuvering with the rules, there isn't anybody waiting there to step up.
Right.
There isn't an alternative that the convention has been made aware of to step forward. So this becomes a defeat for the Never-Trumpers, a victory for the RNC and for Donald Trump, and an uprising that, frankly, they thought they had already put down and rose again today. And that's the chaos, that's the confusion and the disappointment.
So somebody that was on the floor for Kentucky sent me a note saying that obviously Kentucky wasn't a part of any of those states that were never Trump, but he said that Senator Mike Lee of Utah has a point that at least the RNC could provide an explanation as to how that voice vote decision happened, because I don't think, to me, this seems like a family that has a bunch of issues that they've never talked about, and now it's Thanksgiving dinner and everyone is mad. And on the Wall Street Journal poll on Sunday that came out, Wall Street Journal, NBC, 60% of Republicans or lean Republicans said they would have preferred someone else as the nominee. So from the RNC standpoint, yes, victory tonight in a way, but how do they then explain to these people that are so mad what happened?
Well, they probably don't explain it to them. I mean, that's sort of why they made a voice vote and closed it all down. They don't have to explain it. The RNC makes its own rules. They bend their own rules. Donald Trump is not wrong when he says that these systems are occasionally rigged. They're rigged to win.
But he said they were rigged against him before. Now they're rigged in his favor?
But they're rigged in his favor. They're rigged to win. They're rigged to try to quell this type of dissent. Clearly, it didn't quell the dissent, but it did quell the motion.
Right.
Anybody?
Yeah, I just have a question. I mean, where does it go from here? I mean, basically, this is the opening night. We're going to hear, I guess, from Melania Trump. And do we know what time that's going to happen and kind of the back about that?
After this melee is tamped down, and it's going to take some handshaking and some arm twisting, then things will begin to sort of move much more normally. We will see Mrs. Trump tonight. We'll also see 2 people who are on the short list, Lieutenant General Mike Flynn and Senator Joni Ernst. Tonight is about Make America Safe Again, so we're going to hear a lot about law and order. We're going to hear a lot about terrorism overseas. We're going to hear a lot about domestic violence, particularly involving police officers and the kind of violence we've been seeing. So that's what tonight is supposed to be about, not the political violence that the Never-Trumpers had visited upon them this afternoon.
So, Carl, let's go behind the scenes on this. One is obviously the iron hand of Reince Priebus saying, hey, this is what I wanted set up. I thought I had dealt with it before. It's now.
That may be the first time anybody's ever said that Reince.
I know, exactly. That's pretty good. But what I noticed today was Paul Manafort going after the governor of Ohio and saying, hey, what's going on here? What kind of loyalty are we seeing from the governor of Ohio? Alienating the governor, Kasich. But secondly, a lot of talk about whether or not Ted Cruz, another potential opponent, would have the opportunity to speak at the convention.
So the understanding was that in order to get a speaking slot at this convention, you had to endorse Donald Trump. Ted Cruz was promised a speaking slot, said he would take it, even though he has yet to do so. Part of the negotiation about whether he gets his slot filled and actually gets to speak is whether or not the content of his speech will include something like an endorsement, if not an actual.
Right.
And Cruz is sort of hedging on that, so it's a negotiation still underway. Again, this is the sort of stuff that usually happens in the smoke-filled back rooms. Today it was right there on the auditorium floor where there's no smoke.
Well, I think a lot of people might say, oh, you know, Juan's the Democrat, so he's kind of enjoying it. But in fact, I think it's very interesting that in a populist year, you see the populism come to the fore, and it's being squelched, absolutely stepped on.
Well, the populism this time around comes more from the establishment Republicans.
Yeah.
The populism throughout this campaign has been believed to be in Donald Trump's supporters. Donald Trump's supporters are going to go bananas if there is some sort of a parliamentary rule or some sort of a rule massage at the last second that pulls the rug out from under him. And the truth is, the RNC has been from the outset saying there are plenty of ways that this will be stopped. There was a rumor at one point today that after the Never-Trumpers had gotten their more than 7 state majorities, that they couldn't find the secretary to actually show them the signatures. And I got to tell you,
very convenient.
As far back as the debate that took place in Miami in March, there were RNC people saying, you know, some of the delegates may just not be able to leave their hotel rooms that day and come vote. Some of them may decide that they're going to go on a field trip and just leave the compound altogether in order to not vote. So there's lots of ways that this was going to get gamed. In the end, it happened from the podium.
All right, Greg. Yeah, to me, I mean, this is disturbing in the sense that we keep hearing, like, how important unity is. We've also been told by Trump that he doesn't need a lot of these people. So my feeling is I don't think this is over. I don't think it's over by a long shot. I think it's like The Walking Dead. It's going to come back. I have a question for you. When he picked Pence, did that pickle the preppers?
Yes, and it ended the suspense.
Yes.
And a tuppence for me and a tuppence for you. It goes on and on. The jokes and the quips about how that happened will continue probably all the way through this election.
Right.
This was not a very smooth rollout.
It looked like an arranged marriage from a Middle East country, and there were the angry men that were demanding it, and the women on the other side saying, please don't do it.
You don't have to go back too far to remember when Sarah Palin was picked as the McCain running mate. That was considered a chaotic rollout. This one may not have been quite as dramatic, and the sweeping landscapes weren't quite as gorgeous, but the bare-knuckle stuff was one of the more chaotic rollouts for any presidential, vice presidential nominee ticket.
It's hard for, like, on the 60 Minutes segment to be in a two-person interview to look competent, because the guy's in charge. You have to sit there. You're like a concubine in the headlights. You know, you're just sitting there, and it just didn't look that attractive.
They're not all that well familiar with each other. They know one another's records. But of course, Pence was a Cruz guy himself for the longest time. So there's a little bit of tension that's sort of built into this. And the other aspect to it is Trump is a master of bringing himself attention. He's not accustomed to sharing it with anybody.
Right.
He's happy to do it with his wife and his kids in the convention here.
Well, they have the same last name.
At the rollout the other day in New York, Trump spoke for 45 minutes. Pence spoke for 4. I mean, it was.
Well, it is a vice presidential role. I mean, you're not like front center.
They had to change the.
Can I ask you one more question about the 3 of the states that were asking for this roll call vote: Iowa, Virginia, and Colorado. Arguably 3 states that Donald Trump needs to win in November, unless he's got another path to 270 electoral votes. What would the campaign do to sort of deal with them? Because the people that are complaining today are party activists.
Well, Virginia's tough, and Cuccinelli has said, and he is obviously a Virginia Republican and has run for a variety of offices and been around for a long time. He's deeply concerned that Trump might lose that state.
Right.
Iowa is also a swing state, and it's the same sort of a problem there. Trump didn't win the Iowa caucuses. He started with a loss in the caucuses, and Colorado is an incredibly important swing state. And Kendall Unruh, the delegate and the chairman of their delegation, is one of the never-Trump pushers. So there's animus there. It is not the case in a handful of other swing states. And of course, Trump has his safely red, and Hillary will have her safely blue.
Right.
On the Electoral College map right now, things seem to be tilted towards Clinton, but we're just getting started here now. I mean, granted,
because Trump could get a pretty decent bump out of this convention.
Both candidates, both Hillary and Trump, have had plenty of time to start getting things ready to go, but they really can't hit the gas until after the convention. Now we're finally almost there.
Carl, we're going to have to let you go in just a second. I have one quick comment. Just tell me that it's not as bad as it seems. I've been there on the floor in 2012 when there was a vocal vote, and the yeas were yay and the nays were nay, but the yeas held. And I was there again today when the same thing happened. Politics as usual continues, or what?
Well, this time around it was to the potential aid and help of Ted Cruz. The last time we had this type of an uproar was when Ron Paul was protesting not having been allotted the delegates that he thought he won in Iowa.
Why do they use this system? It's so inefficient.
At the end of this, there will be a vote to make the nomination by acclamation.
Right.
You're going to hear a lot of people say no. You're going to hear the chairman say, the ayes have it, it's by acclamation.
Because when you go to the airport, you can now order food with a button, you know, at LaGuardia. Why can't people just punch buttons?
Order their nominee with a button.
Yeah, order their nominee with a button.
Swipe right, swipe left.
We got to let Carl go.